Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Joy. Hi, Christian.
It's great to see everybody. We're all up, ready to do it. Nothing like the excitement of doing something live versus pre-recorded. And when the guest shows up, like right at the minute, I'm looking off to the side at your camera there, Stacy. Yeah.
Life's
Anyway,
been a little difficult these days.
Yeah. But thank you, everybody, showing up.
Oh, so
So,
sorry.
Well, let me do the kind of intro. We'll get into the chatter here. I know we've got it's hard doing a monthly show versus like the weekly podcast and other things that we have going on. But welcome everyone to Guardians of M365 Governance, episode 14. This series is a monthly webcast focused on the rapidly evolving and expanding Microsoft 365 governance story. And I think today is a great example of, we're going to get into the nitty gritty of looking at all of the announcements through the lens of a governance perspective. Our goal, of course, is to share insights, best practices, and the latest information about the new governance features and capabilities within M365. And we're dedicated to everything governance within the ecosystem. So if you have questions or comments throughout on what we should cover or guests we should have on the show, please comment. And so anyway, just very quickly before we introduce our guests here, how's everybody else doing? Like, what else is going on in the governance ecosystem out there?
Conferences. So I will travel again after a little bit of winter break. There will be a call-up days in Bremen, Northern Germany, where I will talk about Copilot adoption best practices together with Viva and employee experience. And the week later, so this is next Saturday, then the week later, also on a Saturday, there will be a global AI summit in Hamburg. Also, again, same topic. But then I will talk about how to move from SharePoint agents, low-level, no-code, to Azure AI, hardcore coded.
That's cool stuff. And did you guys see? So there was it was the Fabian Williams did something for folks that don't know Fabian. He's now at Microsoft. He was an MVP. He's doing a lot of stuff. He does he's an advocate for the engineering community, the developer community, and he does a lot of Copilot extensibility, M365 extensibility stuff. And the stuff he was doing is relevant to all of us, especially for anybody that's an evangelist or product marketer or anything. He's been building out and automating tools around Copilot to generate other content, create blog posts and abstracts and descriptions and social media posts and all this automatically on the back end using Copilot, and again on the back end other models, other LLMs and other models. It's
that was very exciting. I've seen his blog post when he was playing with DeepSeek running locally, and inspired by his LinkedIn post, I also wrote something which I'm sharing now in the thread. Maybe you can share it also later, Christian. I wrote a blog post where we can download DeepSeek in a very new Visual Studio Code extension called AI Toolkit. So you use Visual Studio, you enable the new AI extension, which is currently in preview and released, let's say 4 days ago. And then you would download your large language model of your choice, which can be Llama, which can be DeepSeek. So in case you would like to develop something and don't trust the DeepSeek cloud, then you can just run it inside of Visual Studio Code, play around, use the playground.
Wise.
In my case, I had an HP laptop, which has a special NPU. So it was really using the neural processing unit. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that DeepSeek is currently, no, it's getting very, very nerdy. Sorry. DeepSeek is the only large language model from Hugging Face, which supports the new NPU in this Azure toolkit running on Visual Studio Code.
Way down in the weeds. But no, I think, again, all these experiments, this again, and I was just having this conversation last night with a partner, talking about how this is great evidence why you need to have within your organization a governance group that is then looking at these experiments that we're doing, what would be the impact? You're going through the questions. You're understanding if we were to go live with this, what data are we talking about? What third-party systems? What external, libraries are we accessing here? What's the risk footprint for all of that? So it's a security discussion. It's a governance discussion.
Exactly.
Everything old is
Wonderful conversation.
new again,
Yeah.
right? And I know Stacy's going to have some amazing opinions on this too. But we used to joke about the governance committee was the committee that always said no.
Yeah.
But that was of no benefit to the organization. Same with having AI governance communities or committees in our organization. They have to be open to evaluating and testing so we can see what's going to work for our organization instead of just saying no and locking it down.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. I'm so with you. So that was actually a joy. The key topic of it, because I don't like this black and white conversation that, okay, everything which is new, it should be always allowed, or everything which is new, especially when it's coming from China, should be always locked down. No, we need to find gray zones. And that's the reason why governance is so crazy important. Because here I was showing, listen, you can run it on your own laptop. You can go offline. You don't need any cloud or internet. You can just use it offline. When you are convinced, then use DeepSeek running on Azure. That's always an option in the Azure Foundry. So there are many options, and you don't need to say no to a Chinese LLM because it is too exciting to say no.
But again, you need to do things in having the constraints in place where people are aware. You're aware of what people are doing, the technology they're playing with. They're not using them. Their work laptop and a work system, downloading things onto your local environment versus firewalled off into this environment. I mean, kind of all those things. That should be part of the discussion. That's my point. I think that's the key. If you're having those discussions, you're not going to automatically say no and just lock things down because that's not the answer. That's when you have shadow IT. That's when people say, look, I'm going to go experiment because this could add value. I'm going to go do this regardless of what you say, but it might just not be in a safe way.
And 2025 is going to be the year of, I'm just inventing it, sorry, shadow agents, shadow LLMs, shadow AI.
Already is. Already is.
I see Ragnar's already working on his abstracts for late summer, early fall sessions around that. Well, let's jump into this. So for this 14th episode, we welcome Stacy Deere, who's a fellow M365 MVP and CEO of Focal Point Solutions, and somebody who is also, if you step back and you look at the people that have been talking about governance for a long time, Stacy's one of those people as well. In fact, I think, Stacy, when I met you and you were doing some stuff, I think it was back in the era you were doing that show with Stephanie, like the SharePoint TV related stuff. Again, it was heavily governance focused with a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I actually got into this because I was telling every people, hey, no, let's figure it out first before we go do this. Because I was that person like, hey, can we have some gates here? And like, I was just sitting here listening to you guys talk. I was like, we should have a discussion one day about the evolution of governance through our years. Because boy, has it drastically changed from way back then till it is now. Because I remember the days where you're like, hey, let's put a governance team together, put them in a room, and you got to review this doc and this doc. I'm like, no, we're not reviewing docs anymore. We're actually out there testing, like you said, testing what works, what doesn't work. So it's changed so much through the years. But yeah, that's how I got started in all this. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, I know we talked about wanting to spend about 30 minutes. I mean, the goal is always with the show to be like 30 minutes. It's a little bit longer. There's a lot to go through. But what specifically you had with Ignite last fall, you had that special SharePoint event that happened here earlier. I don't even time now. I can't remember. We're only in February. It feels like, doesn't it feel we're like in Q2 already?
Yeah, January was 6 months long.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So last month, all the way last month when that happened, or was it this month? Was it February? I don't even remember.
I don't know.
It was ages ago. We've all aged so much. I've gone gray in this 6 month January.
Just moments.
But lots of announcements that came out of that. And so anything that just jumped out, let's just talk about that. Anything from a governance lens, anything that has just stood out from the Ignite announcements. I know Ragnar, like you kicked things off in this discussion that we had offline with like 3 bullets. So I mean, I could seed it.
So from
So you have like the start off the top, like the built-in content governance controls. I mean, that's something that in the evolution of Microsoft 365 that we're seeing more and more, governance being built into the product versus having to go and figure out what to configure out of the box, or I have to go buy all these third-party tools. There's so much more that you can do with out of the box with Purview, but even more concentrated capabilities being built directly into the admin center.
I think my biggest thing for all of it, because I've kind of been in the AI since it started, is just the restricting of the content that you can discover through everything. And one of the things that I found, like with all the things that came out, is it's great to finally see that I kind of felt like governance was in the forefront for all the updates that came out. Yes. Because it was more focused on how can we make governance better, easier, automated, and all these things were pieces and parts of that. When AI first came out, if you wanted to restrict certain types of data from not being in it, like if you didn't want OneNote content in there, you had to go disable the add-in, right? And now you have all these additional tools that they're finally giving you and allowing you to automate it. And, restricting the content that you can get to, I think has been great with the new policies, the sensitivity, retention things, all those types of things have they've just gotten so big very quickly. When I saw it, I was like, okay, so when can I play, right? So I was probably one of the first people in there, because that's just something that we should have had, in my opinion, from the beginning.
Yeah. So. I think Microsoft recognizes organizations need help, and it can't be necessarily a pay-for-play help. It's legitimate if this tool is going to be adopted, if the concept of AI inside of Microsoft 365 is going to be adopted, organizations need help. Some of these things that are inside of the SharePoint Advanced Management feature suite, they're shades of governance and assistance that we've needed since SharePoint rolled out.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's here. Now it's more widely available.
I love the fact we didn't have to buy an additional license. If you already had AI, Copilot, then you got it. That was nice to see. That was nice.
Yeah.
There's been a few licensing surprises, and
good kind.
And things that we're not going to go through. We're not going to go through any level of licensing discussion here, but I think that is again, you have to have a PhD to understand the Microsoft licensing. But yeah, I mean, I think the number one concern when we're talking about Copilot was around the risks of oversharing. And so going in and looking at and understand how are people using to be able to go in and to define it. This is something when Copilot rolled out, Ragnar and I were working together. Like Ragnar, you went out and we were working with Rencor and looking at experimenting and being able to see, like, define oversharing. Like there wasn't clear cut. We had to go in and do a few things and build some policies to look at it to give us the data. It's like, is this truly showing us all of the oversharing? So
reverse engineering was our job, actually.
Right. But that was one of those things. I think again, Microsoft even wasn't thinking yet about it. It was, they were out in front innovating. Hey, you can do this thing, and then it was immediately we were looking at it and saying, wait a second, you're going to break. Here's how using Copilot, if you turn everything on, breaks all of the policies, all of the rules. Loop, same thing. It was you go out, you share something. As soon as anybody can invite somebody else externally into it, or not externally, but outside of that group inside the company. And it will break any policies, any of the controls that you had around that, that very secure documentation. It didn't have the ability, doesn't have the ability to inherit the labels and all the other things that you're doing. Like, this is a problem. So we have to be aware. How are people actually using this? Yeah. What could we restrict?
And that's what I'm seeing currently as one of the most important things, that we need more advanced tools who give proactively recommendations about Copilot conflicts. oversharing because there's no time to check everything. We need tools to say, listen, you're doing something wrong. Looking now also into Joy's direction, you're doing a wonderful job here in having your own dashboards around recommendation, health checks. So I think that's what customers want, saving times because you get immediately a response, a feedback when something is configured wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I was
going to say, honestly, so much of governance is reverse engineering, isn't it?
Yeah.
We see there's a problem. Okay, how did we get there? What can we do to keep that from happening again? And oversharing is definitely one of those where, do you remember, was it 2010 when Microsoft first put the share button into SharePoint? And all of us kind of admin people were like,
Was it that old?
I think so.
I thought that was
think
newer,
so.
but yeah. Anyway.
Well, it proliferated more and more and more and more. But it's like, I don't know that I want it to be that easy to share.
Yep.
And here we are talking about oversharing, even in the context of the organization. When I take this file that's in my team, which is in my SharePoint site for this audience, and I now go share it org-wide.
Yeah. But also the bigger question is, what does it mean that I'm sharing it, right? Because a lot of people, a lot of users think that sharing is, oh, this is my teammate. We're in the same site. I'm going to share this document with them. That's not what that means, right? It breaks the permission. You're doing all these things. And, so I feel like there's always a lot of misconstrued information being given. And, we all saw like Copilot come out and everybody purchased it, turned it on, and they were like, oh crap. And they turned it off. Right. So now people are like, prove it to me. Right. I think finally these announcements and stuff that we're getting are ways that we can prove that, but it's going to take a little bit because there was some information that got exposed that really should have never gotten there. And, there's not all people at all these companies like us to say, no, don't do it. But
Well, that's another reason why. So another one of the Ignite announcements was around the restricted content discovery. So being able to go in there and before all that happens, setting up specific policies that prevent specific areas in your environment, specific data sites from being accessed by Copilot or that org-wide search, kind of all those things. Again, if you were very search-centric, you were probably already locking that down. You're going through that activity. But most organizations did more of this model where new features. Cool, let's turn it on. Let's see what happens. Oh, crap. We're seeing spreadsheets with financial information. Again, it's that delve experience all over again. And turn it back off.
Stacy, do you see an acceptance for your customers with this restricted search, or do they say, listen, there are too many downsides because then we cannot find it anymore in the enterprise search, M365 search?
So yeah, I mean, there's a mix of it, and it's sometimes very hard because some organizations are like the enterprise search. I want to go out there, I want to find all my stuff, right? And you're like, that's great, and I want to be able to give you all your content, but if you also want to use this functionality, let's put all these things like pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
And so when I kind of explain it to them in that way about what it does, one versus the other, they're like, okay, you win. Let's try it that way. But just trying to say, no, don't do it, this, that, no. So it's been a struggle for some, because some people are like, I don't like to go find anything. I just search. I use enterprise search all the time, right? And I have some clients that we've done manage metadata and content types so well and everything like that. They never search. So it's like it's very different from some companies.
Just one small fun fact. I came to Microsoft by the fast search acquisition, so my heart was beating and still beating for enterprise search. But since I'm using Copilot, I never did some kind of searches. So I'm not searching anymore in the search bar because I'm so addicted now to Copilot.
That's a big question.
What you're searching for instead of just giving you a link.
But I'm still using Outlook search through my emails.
Oh gosh, well,
right. Well, yeah. Well, that's a whole nother discussion. That's why I think that I was about to say that how the externally, like the going through, to Google search, Bing search, whatever, my Alta Vista page, my home page, is still there. But anyway, that world is changing, rapidly. I mean, already AI is integrated into the search results of most of the search sites. But I mean, are people even going to those pages? And I see comments from people that are using ChatGPT or Copilot, the public version, the free version of that, in that same way. I mean, technically, ChatGPT is integrated into the Bing search and is part of that. But it's just changing the way that looks internally. Again, there are Copilot commands that I go in and leverage that I used to go spend time searching through Outlook to try and find those things, where I can now go to Copilot and look across, because the biggest pain that I have is, where was I having that conversation? Was it in a chat in a team? Was it in an email? Like, where
I
was
always use Copilot to find it. Always.
Right.
Always.
Yeah, always.
And I think that needs to somehow just be better integrated into the default experience to find that.
I gave it up.
Yeah.
It was my vision for so many years to have this M365 search for exactly this use case, for this question, but I completely gave up. And now Copilot is doing an extremely awesome job to find it. So I'm using this prompt a few times a week.
Yeah, I used to use Delve. I was so sad when they retired it, and I get it that it was kind of absorbed and all that with other apps, Copilot, but I use Delve quite a bit. That was my favorite app on a Monday morning, to sit down and go see, okay, where did I leave off on Friday? Who's doing what that I could help with, contribute with? But of course, you have the power of knowledge, of knowing it's only showing me things I already have permission to. So there's no breaches. I'm not sneaking in or spying on anybody, which is the same conversation we have to have now for Copilot. It's not breaking permissions. It's not sneaking things to you.
Yeah.
Permissions are correct.
Well, it doesn't mean permissions are correct. It means you've got it, because
If your permissions are correct.
Right. It's not security through obscurity. It's not,
Can't.
It's I mean, that's where the conversation, and we've talked about it on this series, is that, when Delve was turned on, and even beginning with Copilot, that people would, in fact, I got in an argument through one of our AMAs. So I can't remember if, maybe, one or more of you were part of this conversation, but somebody was arguing like, no, I'm seeing like something's broken. I was like, I'm telling you, no, what's broken is that you have maybe dual policies and they're conflicting. And so someone is seeing the result that they shouldn't see. It's not because Delve, or in this case, Copilot, are broken. It's because your policies are conflicting. They're getting that content in a way that you are not expecting. You need to go look at that.
Joy, can I just dig a little bit deeper into your use case? Are you using a special prompt which says, okay, please tell me in Copilot all the news about my team or about my company members? Is there a prompt, or did you just say, okay, please tell me the latest updates? Where is currently Michael, Juha, and so on working on? So are you using like name, comma, name, or do you use a security group, an M365 group, to gather these informations to find more about what's everybody doing?
So I'm onboarding a new head of success for Orchestry. So a lot of what I've been doing is like, hey, go through the last 6 months. We don't email each other internally, so that's a little bit easier. But like channel chats and internal chats that have to do with, and I'll give it topics. So I'll say with the success team, right? And I'll mention the group. Sometimes it's the individuals, because that'll give different results. If I mention like anywhere where this security group is being used, right, I'm going to get different results than if I put individuals in there. So I'll go at it a couple of different ways, compare, contrast the data. Actually, I'll have it compare and contrast the different results that I get back, and have it put it into a beautifully organized chronological list. I can even have it like, help me prioritize these. So this new head of success that comes in doesn't have to guess. And of course, I have the final say on what truly is the priority, but at least it gets it closer for me Time
Oh, yeah.
saver.
You know what I love? I'm sure you've all, because we all know him, but Michael Gennady, who's with Microsoft. He's been tweeting about sharing out through social some of his prompts and things out there, where it's things I didn't even think about. Where we're asking for data, whatever it is, to pull it back from these multiple locations with all the things. He's focusing on then the output, the format of the output, and being much more particular about specifying the format and this structure and doing these things. So it's bringing back tables or graphics or what those things as part of that result. And I think sometimes I just forget about that. It's more of here's what I'm looking for, and then it's like rolling. What am I going to get?
Yeah, because if you ask for it in the right format, then if you can copy and paste it and it looks beautiful in other ways, then you copy it, but it does not look so beautiful when you paste it. So it's like it's all in the way you ask for the data. He's got some I've used a few of them.
Yeah.
Stacy, one of the other big announcements is around DLP, so data loss prevention within Copilot. And so that is something, specifically making sure that responses that are generated by Copilot are not using sensitive topics, content.
The special labels for Copilot.
How is that being used? Are you like customers very on top of that?
Yeah, so I have a client that the piece around where it starts to prevent AI from referencing that type of data, the confidential data. And that was an issue for one of my clients. And so we right now are starting to dig into that for them. And so we're starting to essentially work on some, different policies and stuff like that. But what's also nice is the fact that it comes back and it's telling you, like, hey, it's showing you the references so that you know what you need to go back and tweak. So that's just kind of cool because it allows you to work with it, which is my whole thing about AI and Copilot is it's a collaborative tool. Yeah, I just don't ask it one question. It tells me the answer. I collaborate with it to get the full answer that I need. And I'm finding when I'm working in those, it's kind of the same way. So you're not ever going to get it the first time, but the more you work with it and the more, collaborating with it, you're getting better results for it. But I have some that are doing that. Some of the things to reduce GDPR and, high risk, high trust and stuff like that. So I've got some clients that are focused on that right now. So they literally are moving towards this model just because of that. So the increase in that. So they're not going live essentially with it until all those types of things are done because they're very high trust and all that kind of stuff. You name it, they have it in compliance. So, and I appreciated the fact that if I pushed back, they said, you just tell us how far we need to step back. And so that was kind of nice to hear where a lot of times we get pushed to go faster than we want to. But when you're talking about that kind of data, it's nice to be able to push back and then listen. So I've got one major client focusing strictly on that kind of stuff right now. So
exciting.
Yeah.
Is there what conversations are happening, if any, around governance and agents?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. I have some say not quite ready for that. And I'm like, so I think they were just, the reason why I think, and this is my opinion, is just there was so much that has come out recently that agents isn't at the top of that list at this point. I feel like it will come, but just, everybody's diving into some of that other stuff because they're like headliners, right? Yeah. They're headlining things that people want right now. And, I think they'll get to the agents. But right now the focus especially on my stuff hasn't been there yet.
Do you feel that for governance and agents, and this is where my mind goes, because I'm not in the trenches like you are anymore, is that it's going to be a similar conversation that we had for governance in the Power Platform?
Yep.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Joy. That's exactly my comment.
Very much. Well, it's exactly the types of conversation that you feel like you're having again, all over again, just different technology at this point, right?
Buzzwords.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's, I mean, I look at it like you can't bake a cake without breaking some eggs. I know some people don't like that. They want to have
Harsh,
everything
man.
locked down completely, but then you're going to limit innovation. You're not going to find out what are the extents of what can we go and do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one reason. I know this is a broader conversation around the culture of an organization, but you have to allow people to experiment. There has to be some degree of R&D to play with, and mistakes will be made.
Yep.
But you
It's,
should do it.
I think, Christian, here we are in a different situation because everybody can get this Copilot Studio license for free and then play around in this playground. It's only going to be available for the whole organization when the Copilot Studio license owner, so the real license who costs money, if he or she is going to deploy it to the organization. But everybody can start building these agents. So that's benefit here. So it's not about locking things down. Everybody can play and build the agents, but the deployment is in the hand of the admin who has the real paid license. And then what I'm hearing from my customers, and I'm now back in consulting, so I'm also running these workshops, is that they say, listen, Ragnar, I understand the value of Copilot agents. I fully understand the story, but I'm clearly missing the guardrails here. We need more governance because this agent is created for a special use case, and I don't want to roll it out to thousands of people because it's maybe only relevant for, I don't know, maybe 20 people. Okay. So simple things like a permission or a role concept is currently missing, and they don't want to roll out too many agents to too many people, which are confusing, where they need trainings, IT support, and so on. So they need more simple things, which we know since 20 years. This agent for this group, for this.
But that makes my point, Ragnar, is that if you have to have conversations around this, you're not going to know all the answers and what we need to be locking down, what we need to be doing. If people can't even come and say, hey, look, I'm doing this, I'm experimenting. Like, it's great that with the free licenses, you can go, it's basically, I mean, Microsoft was smart to lead with this kind of freemium model. I guess they didn't lead with it. This is like phase 2 of this. But to do that, to hook everybody on their drug, and then but to do something to scale it, yes, you have to have the proper licenses for that. But you should be having then the conversations like, what would be the impacts of this? How do we then test this out? What do we need to do to make sure that this, when we roll it out, it's done the right way?
Yeah.
And Christian, Christian, you just mentioned a freemium, and you didn't say free, so you're saying freemium, which means that there is a new pay-as-you-go model, and I promise you not to go too deep into the licensing topic, but it's not only that they have a license of $240 per month for the Copilot Studio, there is also a pay-as-you-go, and this very, very unclear pay-as-you-go license model, where you need a PhD, as you mentioned. That's something what customers prevent to roll it out because it's so unclear how many costs will be at the end of the month.
Yeah, that's why you have to pilot it, roll it out slowly, look at those initial costs. Yeah. If people are actually then using this, if it's the pay as you go. The consumption model is really popular with the software companies, which it sounds great. Like, we're only paying for it as we use it. But then you have to look at, what are the transactions that it's billing me on? If I roll this out and make it available, is everybody then going to go in and use this thing? And suddenly I find these enormous bills because people are using this thing. So you've got to look at that. We have a question that came in too, or I'll share it up on screen here. But Mahaman says, how do SPFx customizations contribute to enhancing governance and security in SharePoint?
Love this question.
Well, if you're using the SharePoint framework, you're doing it the right way because it's the supported model. Thoughts? Ragnar, you said you love the question. What do you love? What do you love about the SPFx customizations?
Because on the one hand, they can visualize and show and display the permissions. So the biggest value what I'm currently seeing is that they add more transparency. Who has access to which kind of workspace, which kind of vision level. So that's something what the SPFx can do. Cost saving topics. Maybe there's also a chance to develop SPFx frameworks to visualize costs or costs where costs are violated, whatever. But I see both. So
Yeah.
and
Well, it forces people to go through the process there. It's like if you're gonna go through this acceptance model, I think this is what you're saying, Joy, is then it's following certain standards. It's not just somebody went on their desktop, created something, hey, look at my solution, push it out there, and it just causes all these problems. That it will work within the environment because it meets those standards. That helps. That's part of the discussion that has to happen around governance. It's not just, hey, here's what we're trying to achieve as a business. It's like, here's architecturally how we've built it. This is what we're trying to do. Having some degree of oversight of these solutions, because somebody may go in and say, this is why what you built for yourself won't work with the team, certainly not for the enterprise. And for this to scale, for us to roll it out, we need to architect it in a way that it'll be scalable, supportable, kind of all those things.
Right.
Yeah. The only issue what I'm currently seeing with SPFx is here that I don't see a lot of opportunities to visualize when something in SharePoint, for example, was configured wrong. So there are less visualization. Listen, you did something wrong, and there's also very few ways only to hardening things. So when permissions which were inherited were broken, SPFx tools cannot really harm things, or so it's more about it's built to build things for developing things, but not too much for governance purposes where you show misconfigurations or violations.
Well, I know some of the other discussion around the SharePoint event. Maybe we move forward like out of the Ignite world, like that last fall stuff. That's so far back. If January was 6 months, how many years ago was Ignite last fall?
A lifetime.
Right. A lot of changes. But so you had this special SharePoint event talking about, and it was very much on like the designer. It was more of the where years ago. It was 2016, the SharePoint event that took place in San Francisco, where they kind of brought back Teeper was back and in that role and lead the charge, and it was all about making SharePoint even more beautiful. And now I refer to it, I'm sure this will make some Microsoft people cringe, but I call it the Wixification of the SharePoint interface. But it's like that WordPress Wix experience where I can design and move everything. So much control over. Like, I love that about SharePoint. That about a lot of the announcements that were out there.
Yeah.
And there's like almost every day, every week, certainly there's announcements of, new different components for your intranet, for your sites out there. Yeah. But the big things around governance were around the content classification and automated metadata management. And also, again, about oversharing, dealing with those, both of those things inside SharePoint itself. So things like autofill for your metadata.
I'm pretty excited about that one because I may have a fully funded prototype working with a law firm on all of that's in the works right now. I'm pretty excited about it because, one, their biggest thing is everybody in their organization can have access to all the documents, so they don't really need permissions to keep things away. But more theirs is with the autofill based off of the department and whatnot, is whatever area you're in, you seeing the content that is relevant to you versus someone else. And so I'm pretty excited about that one, because we're going to be using some of the OCR functionality and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty excited with all the stuff we've kind of got planned for that one. I'll have to come back and tell you guys about it, but I'm pretty excited about using all that new technology with that law firm. So
wonderful. So if you want to give feedback then later to the engineering team, my former Yammer customer success manager colleague is now the program manager for this feature.
Oh, nice.
So I'm happy to connect you when you want to share feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I just see just tons of, people want to use metadata, but sometimes if they have to do a lot of tagging themselves, then they just don't want to do it, or they choose not to do it, and people get frustrated. And so I think the more that we make that available, price worthy as well, I think more people will use it, and it'll be better for everybody.
Well, I know some of the other, and I know we're just about out of time here. The one last thing that was really important from a governance standpoint is the auditability and reporting on what's happening with the use of, especially the use around Copilot. So there's new reporting features for agent and content usage to ensure that your team, that your admins can better monitor AI interactions and access the logs and get to that data. And then customize what you need, what information you need about how people are working. So to be able to do that, pattern detection to understand that, hey, usage, this looks abnormal, this area, are we starting to see something where the behavior, is it just heavy usage by a very excited group of users over here, or is there something that's happening so you can just have tighter control over your content?
Yeah, well, constantly learning too, right? Through those data-driven insights that it's using. So it's learning, just like, from the entire time, how your business works, the types of things that you get in. I think that's great that it's always evolving.
Well, especially with the deployment of agents,
Yeah.
tracking their usage, knowing like what is being used, and hey, is this something we're seeing this agent take off? Can it be more broadly used elsewhere? Or if we have two that are similar, is there one that's winning out, and why?
And we've just started because now we're getting the memory functions where we can share the knowledge between different Copilots. So Copilot for PowerPoint can learn from Copilot for Loop or from Word. So that's another thing. And then also I'm really looking forward to see the reasoning models rolling out to Copilot, where I can watch Copilot thinking.
Well, I feel like we go back to that Power Automate conversation. Will we get to the point where okay, we see that this group, this cohort of employees is using this agent to do this thing. Holy moly, that would be a game changer org-wide, right? Take those small use cases, grow it up, scale it, really increase that return on investment.
Yeah. And then also the whole conversation around orchestration, where we finally are building these agents based on multiple layers, where they say, listen, this is a support agent, and in the first support layer, it's going to use this kind of large language model, and the second one, it's going to use a small language model, and then the third is going to be a deep thinking model, and then creating governance around these three tiers and support tiers levels. So it's universe which just open in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap things up, always thank you to the entire panel. Stacy, thanks for being our guest today. Maybe do as a guest, and this is something kind of new. We're talking about for future shows. We're talking about folks that we could bring in, topics that we want to cover around this. Obviously, anybody watching, if there's a topic you'd like us to cover around governance, do a deep dive into. If there's an individual or yourself you'd like to be part of the show, get involved besides commenting off the side. Thanks to the couple folks that commented live on screen. But please just drop us a line. Let us know. We've got the hashtag, of course. I guess I could pull up the banners here. Anything that you share your feedback out in various socials. We're across all of them. So I know everywhere. X, Blue Sky. I'm still monitoring Mastodon and Threads as well. So I think, Ragnar, you're everywhere as well. I see
everything except Tinder.
Instagram, all those things. Everything.
That's a compliance violation with my chief family officer.
Yeah. But please reach out to us. Of course, you can connect with us through our socials there. But Stacy, I know that real quick, but with what you do, just give us the 20-second of how you work with clients as well. So I want to give you that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we essentially we do everything in the Microsoft stack. We do a lot of probably deeper dive into governance and security than a lot of other companies do, just because it's a passion. of mine and stuff like that, plus user adoption, et cetera. But when it comes to, migrating, organizing your data, all that kind of stuff, we're here for you. And also we work with this great third-party company that just helps, do great provisioning things. And
that company.
Yeah.
You see, it sounds fantastic.
or
Does it help orchestrate things?
Oh, yes, they help orchestrate lots. And I love working with them. So we make a great team.
Yes, we do. Yes,
Wonderful.
Right. And hey, we will be back. So we are doing these shows on the third Wednesday of every month, but we'll have news coming soon of our next guest. And so be watching for that. And again, go out and follow. You can find the past recordings. Ragnar has them on his YouTube page. I have them on my YouTube page.
And on my podcast. So in case you would like to listen to us, just grab your favorite podcast player, Spotify, whatever it is.
We're all over the place. And Joy, do you have a playlist of all these on your page as well out there?
Adding it to my to-do list.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There you go.
Wonderful.
Well, thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Thanks so much for the rest of my panelists. And we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.